Hello, thank you for tuning in to our second episode in our PowerShell series. Today we're going to be going over PowerShell scripting as well as how to use the environment variables built into PowerShell. These can be useful for the scripts and for other tasks. So first we're going to address some common questions. For example, what is PowerShell scripting? Well, PowerShell scripting is the process of writing and executing code scripts from PowerShell. This is useful for automation, administration, and can help with various workflows. We're also able to execute these scripts from the command line, so it'll be easy to demonstrate their usefulness. Now, typically, you could use an IDE such as the PowerShell IDE or a graphical user interface such as Notepad in order to edit the contents of a file. And as long as you have the .ps1 extension at the end of that file, you should be able to run these scripts without issue. So what is the .ps1 extension? The .ps1 extension is the standard naming convention for PowerShell scripts. And you want to make sure to append this to the end of the file. For example, it's similar to .txt, .wav, .pdf, etc. So this will help you follow best practices and also can be useful for the system to recognize what type of file it is. Now, there are a few environment variables that we can use, such as PS version table and home, which we're going to be going over today. So the PS version table will show the version of PowerShell that we're running and some other details that are also useful to know. You also could use the home variable in order to display the current home directory based on your current profile, the user you're signed into, and your system setup. So we're going to get started with the home variable, as it's quite easy to use. And something to note before entering these variables is that we're going to want to have a $sign before the name of the variable. Now, why is that? Well, the $sign is used to output the values of that variable. So here, if we type $sign home, what we would be outputting here is our home directory. So we'll give it a try. Let's hit enter. Now, as you can see, we have outputted our home directory. And this may look different depending on the operating system you're running or the environment you're in. But no matter what, the home variable should reference your home directory, which alone can be useful for administration tasks or just for not getting knowledge based on your current system. So as we mentioned, there's also the PS version table variable, and this allows us to check the version of PowerShell we're running. Now, we've mentioned prior that PowerShell versions have different features, and this can signify important aspects such as whether you want to upgrade PowerShell, your version of PowerShell, or also just knowing what it's compatible with. So let's go ahead and give that a try. We're going to type PS version table. Now, it's important here that you type everything in correctly, as if you don't, it could lead to unforeseen results. So let's hit enter. And as you can see, we have some useful information. We have the PowerShell version, which is listed, the edition, which is desktop, because I'm currently running this on my local desktop computer, and then also other versions that our current PowerShell version is compatible with. So these variables are useful for various things, but we're going to take it a step further today, and I'm going to show you how to have these variables within a script. Now, these variables are built into PowerShell, so regardless of the system you're using, it should work. And if you incorporate these variables into a script, that script should be cross-platform. As long as you have PowerShell configured correctly, we should be able to run these scripts. Now, as I mentioned, you can use an IDE or a graphical user interface of your choice, but we're going to be doing everything through the command line interface. And I'd recommend following along, as you can learn a lot from the commands we use here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create our scripts. Now, we're going to use a command that we've used prior, which is the new item command. Now, if we type new item, and then we're going to pass a parameter that's the name of the file that we're creating, and that's going to be test script. And we're going to add the PS1 extension for naming convention. Now, there's going to be something new that I'm introducing in this episode that we hadn't done prior, which is adding an additional parameter. And this is the value parameter, which will allow us to add contents to this file. So we're going to do minus value, and this is the additional parameter that we're inputting, and then we'll do quotations. And whatever value we put in these quotations is going to end up being the contents of the file. So let's give something a try here. We're going to do home, the home variable. Now, if you're familiar with PowerShell, you may know that the result here isn't exactly what we're expecting, but we're just going to give it a try so I can further explain how PowerShell works. And we're going to go over some special ways to influence the contents of the file. So we're going to hit enter, and as we can see, the file has been created and has a length of 14, which is the amount of characters included in the file. And you may notice that we only have 5 characters listed right here. So 14 is a little more than we may have expected, though 14 is exactly the length of our home directory. And let me show you here. I'm going to introduce a new command, get content. Now, get content is useful for checking the content of files, which we'll do here. Get content, and then we're going to run test script.ps1 as the parameter. So we're checking the value or the content of this file. So if we hit enter, and we can see that even though we typed the name of the variable, the value that was inputted into the content is the output of that variable, or the value, which is our current home directory. Now, in order to make this script useful, we want to have that variable in the file. Because, for example, I'll show you here, when we run test script, which you're going to want to run it by typing it in like this, and depending on the machine you're running, it may be backslash or forward slash, it really depends, so you'll want to take note of that here. Now, if we type this, this is how you run a script on your local machine. But if we run this script, we're going to get errors, and the reason why is because the command that is associated with this script is not a command at all. It's just plain text of our home directory, and we'll see that here when we hit enter. It's not a recognized CMD lit. So how do we fix that? Well, let's remove item test script.ps1, and then we're going to check the contents of our directory to make sure it's no longer there with get child item. As we can see, there's no files or folders within our current directory, so we've removed it. Now we're going to clear the terminal. So how do we get the home variable into the file so we can run the scripts and have it output our home directory? So we're going to use a special character here, and that is the backtick character. It should be at the top left of your keyboard depending on what kind of keyboard you have, and I'm going to show you here what symbol it looks like. So right here, this is the backtick character. Now the backtick character in PowerShell is a special character. It's an escape character, and it allows for us to input content regardless of, for example, the value in this case. So we could type in the name like $home as a home variable, and instead of getting the value of home, we're going to get literally the name of home, the home variable that we want to access. So let's give that a try here. We'll do new item again. We're going to do test script.ps1. We're going to run the parameter of the name, or we're going to run the parameter that has content, which is the value of the file. And in this case, you're going to want to enter the backtick here, which is where my cursor is, before the variable. So we're going to do backtick home. And you may notice that the home variable is not green currently. This isn't something that's supported on all terminals, but in Windows Terminal, the commands and the variables may be color coded depending on your settings. So here we can see that it's blue. And in this case, that's good for us because it's showing that it's referring directly to the text, not the variable. So what's going to happen when we enter this? Well, the backtick is a special character, so it's not going to be input into the file. Instead, it's ensuring that the input is home. So let's give this a try here. We're going to hit enter. And as we can see, the file has been created, or the script, and it has a length of 5. Now 5 is exactly how many characters we need for the content that we wanted to input. So let's now check the content in the file in order to ensure that it will run as we expect. We're going to do git content test script.ps1, enter, and there we have it. It has inputted the variable with the $, so that now when we run this script, it's going to use that variable in the PowerShell environment, and it's going to output for us the home directory. Now let's give this a try. And before I had fully typed out the path towards the script, but I'm going to show you a trick here that will save you some time. So if I just do TE, now there's a special configuration depending on the terminal you're using, where here if I hit tab, it's going to auto-complete to what it thinks that I am typing in. Now if I had multiple test scripts, for example test script 1.ps1, test script 2.ps1, I could hit tab multiple times and we would go through the list. But in this case there's only one test script, so when I hit tab, like right now, as you can see, it auto-completes what I was typing in, and this is the script. So here we're going to hit enter. And as you can see, the contents is the name of the variable, and when we run the script, we output the contents of the variable. So this is very useful. You know, you could run this script on any machine as long as PowerShell is configured, and you'd be able to get the value of that variable. And as we mentioned, this is useful for administration purposes. Now I'm going to show you a way to add content to that file in case you wanted to add additional commands or variables in order to output additional information using the script. Now I'm just going to give you a forewarning. What we're doing here will create an error, but I'm going to show you how we can circumvent it later. And that's going to be with another special character. Before we get started, let's add content to this file. We're going to do, let me move the cursor out of there. We're going to do a special command that we haven't introduced yet. It's the add content command. And then this is similar to the set location command, where it takes 2 parameters, except in this case the second parameter will be content for the file, and it'll append that to the end of the file. So let's give it a try. We're going to do test script.ps1, and then the content that we wish to add, which we'll put in quotations. Here we're going to do the PS version table, and you want to make sure to have the backtick included so that it's not the value of PS version table. Instead, it's the literal name of PS version table with the $, so that we can get value out of our script and we don't get errors in that way. But as I had forewarned, this is going to give us an error, and I'm going to go over why shortly. So we'll do backtick PS version table, enter. Now let's get the contents of this script so I can show you exactly what will cause the error. We're going to do get content test script ps.ps1. And look here. Okay, so I actually made a typo, but the typo will not matter here. So essentially, the issue with add content is that it puts it on the same line when you create a new item. Why is that? So I'm gonna show you again. And also, because this is, like, if this did have a $sign here, it would still give us an error because the script cannot read a single line if that single line is $home, $PS version table. And that's going to be because it needs to read these variables separately. It cannot be one line because then it reads it and it can't tell what we're referring to. We might be able to read and say, okay, we want the home variable in the PS version table, but it's not going to understand that. Now, let me do a quick fix here so I could actually show you what the error would be. So we're going to do remove item test script. I'm just going to really quickly create the script again. We're going to do new item test script home. Then we're going to do, not here, I'm just hitting the up and down arrow keys to quickly access the commands I had already typed in. And that's why this is going to be so quick. We're going to go back, we're going to add the $sign here. And then we're going to go to the get content and check the content of the file. Now, as you can see, I've typed it in correctly this time. Now let's hit clear. And like I mentioned, this isn't going to work because it's all on one line. And we're going to be able to tell by trying to execute the command. So we'll do TE tab, so that way we could access the script without having to type in the full name. We'll hit enter. And as you can see, it gives us some useful information, such as the position, which is on line 1, which is the first line in the file. And it says on character 6. And if you look, there's 5 characters, and this is character 6. Now we're getting an error here because, as it says, this is an unexpected token, or it's an unexpected word, in that we need a space or a new line here in order for it to read it properly. Now I would like to explicitly state something, and we're going to go over that here right now. When you do add content, it actually adds a new line character at the end of that content. Let me show you what I mean. So we're going to do add content test script.ps1, and we're going to use a new variable that I haven't introduced yet. It's the profile variable, and we'll get to see what the contents of it are later. But we're going to do profile, enter. And now let's do get content, because I'm trying to show you something here. We'll do test script.ps1. Let's make sure you're typing it in correctly. And as you look, this is on a new line. So what happened here? So when you add content, it appends a new line to the end of the content you're adding. But when you create a new item, it does not add that new line at the end. So our mistake here is that we created a new item and we added content without that initial new line. Now you could add content multiple times and it's going to keep creating new lines for you. So the main issue here is making sure you have a new line when you first add content in this scenario. So we're going to go back and fix that, and I'm going to show you how. So let's remove item test script1, or sorry, test script.ps1. And now to save some time, we're going to really quickly recreate it with some of the commands that we had used prior. So new item test script.ps1 with the value of home. Then we're going to go to the add content for PS version table. And I'm going to show you a special character here, and I'm going to explicitly show you it after so you could understand exactly what I'm typing here, just in case it's not clear right here. We're going to be doing a backtick n. Now what does the backtick n signify? Well, here it signifies a new line. Let me show you. If I hit enter, and then before we check the contents of the file, I'm going to show you explicitly what I typed. Backtick n. And like I mentioned, this is a new line character. It's a special character in PowerShell that enables you to have content on a new line. So let's check the contents of the file so I can show you what I mean. Get content test script.ps1. And if we look, it's now on a new line. Let's try to run this command and make sure it works. Or sorry, the script. TE, tab, enter. And now if you look, it contains all the info that we had wanted. And if we add content here, we're going to go up a few times. We're going to do add content all the way to profile. And notice I'm not using backtick n here. Just one backtick so we can get the name of the variable, which is $profile. And here you're going to get to see a new variable in action. So we're going to hit enter. And let's clear our window so it's a little more readable. And now we're going to check the content in the file to see if it was properly added. So we're going to do get content. Then we're going to do test script.ps1. And look at that, it's appended the variable successfully on a new line. So if you add content and then you add more content, it appends it to a new line. But if you add content using the new item variable, it does not explicitly add that new line at the end of the content that you're adding. This is very important to note because this could lead to errors if you're trying to create some scripts. And I'm trying to help you out here by showing you exactly how that would work. So let's run this script and see what the final output is. We're going to do TE tab, enter. And if you look at that, we have a new value. Right here we have, right here, which shows that that's where our PowerShell profile is. We're going to go into more detail about the PowerShell profile in a future episode. But for now, I'm happy to have shown you exactly how to create a script, and this is all done from the command line. So you could even put the commands that we've been using into a script. And maybe in a future episode we'll show that, but just know that if you're creating files with the commands we've been using, you're going to want to pay extra attention to that new line character, as you may be creating files and getting errors and unsure why. That's why. So, as we mentioned before, this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the usefulness of PowerShell. And as this is our second episode, we're really only just getting started. We're going to be showing more scripts that cover various useful automation tasks and different use cases. I'm excited to go further with you guys on this, and I hope you enjoyed our content. And soon we're going to be releasing our first Linux episode. If you're interested in that series, or you want to get more content from the PowerShell series, hit the subscribe button, and I look forward to seeing you in future episodes.